I just knew I was gay at 6, and it only deepened after that. Like, oh my God, by the time I was 11 or 12, looking at those Marky Mark's Calvin Klein ads, it was intense. And ever since I had this, spiritual awakening in the hospital, a lot of people are like, so that does that mean you're gonna stop same-sex attraction?
Hey everybody, welcome back to Duke's Download. Today I am incredibly grateful to be talking to Perez Hilton. Once again, I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a few times over the years, and you always brought raw honesty, sharp insight, and a deep commitment to LGBTQ visibility and just, bringing some real substance to every conversation. For those who might not know, Perez is the legendary celebrity gossip blogger and commentator who's been a fixture in pop culture for 2 decades, often unfiltered, always outspoken, and a trailblazer in queer media. Recently, though, Perez went through a major health crisis. He was hospitalized for 3 weeks with severe sepsis and complications, followed by another scare with deep vein thrombosis. During that terrifying time, he had a profound spiritual encounter with God that has completely shifted his perspective. He's been openly sharing his faith journey, reading the Bible from start to finish, and addressing how this experience intersects with his identity as a proudly gay man and father. Perez, welcome back to the show. It's truly an honor to have you, especially during this transformative chapter in your life. Okay, Perez, let's dive in. Just tell us about everything that happened and how you felt going through that entire ordeal.
It was like being shattered into 1,000 pieces and having to be put back together again. It was a slow process, and I'm still not back to normal, even though it's been now almost 2 months since I was discharged the first time. But I've left that experience so grateful because I've made so many positive changes in my life as a result of it. What landed me in the hospital in the first place, like I'm never making that mistake again. And I'll talk about it till can't talk anymore because it's so simple and so stupid of me, but maybe other people do it as well. Prior to my hospitalization at the end of February, I had the flu and I was taking flu medication. And I'm not one to abuse anything except like myself. I'll get to that in a moment. Like I'm not one to abuse anything. So I was taking the flu medication and I was also having headaches. So the flu medication and headache medication as prescribed, but I wasn't taking it with food. And some medicine you don't have to take with food, but things like, what was I taking? I was taking ibuprofen. I was taking ibuprofen and Aleve. Those are called, I believe, NSAIDs, something like that. And you have to take those with food. And because I didn't, and I was sick for a week, I developed an ulcer. And then that led to a perforation. And then that led to sepsis. And it could have been so easily preventable. So now, even my I'm still on a ton of medication now. I'm taking 2 different antibiotics still 2 months later. I'm taking a blood thinner. I have to wear my compression socks. But now, for any medicine that I take, I'm always having it with food, unless it specifically says to not. And, going back to what I said just a little second ago, I would abuse myself. Like what I meant by that is prior to all of this, I never prioritized self-care. I was getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night. And now I'm getting my 8 hours every night. Maybe on a bad night, 7.5, but I'm getting 8 hours of sleep a night and making so many other changes as well that I don't know if I would have had this all not happened to me. So yes, I was shattered into 1,000 pieces, but I'm leaving this all with so much gratitude because I've been given a second chance at life, you know, like sepsis is a very serious thing. A lot of people die because of it. And blood clots also, people can die from that also. And, you know, I'm just happier. I am more committed to not just self-care, but also tied to that. Like I'm back in the gym every single day and I'm so grateful to be there. And I'm doing a better job of not letting the noise affect me. And to go back to what you started with, you know, I recently saw an interview that Meg Stalter did. She is one of the stars of Hacks and is a queer woman and also a Christian. And I love that she was having that conversation. And I'm sharing my journey, which is both a homecoming, because I was raised Catholic, but it's a homecoming on my own terms. Like, I don't call myself Catholic anymore. I call myself Catholic-ish because there's things that I don't agree with, and I don't have to. You know, I remember Joe Biden infamously is Catholic, and you know, he's pro-choice, even though the Catholic Church says that's awful and we're against that and all of these things. You know, I'm actually going to go to an Episcopalian church this Sunday because the Episcopalian church allows gay priests, female priests, priests can marry, and they actually perform same-sex marriages also. But I've gone to non-Catholic churches recently, and it's so interesting. It's like, wow, I'm like at a musical. It's like production and lights, and it's dark, and it's a show. But I liked it. I'm like, you know, what matters to me is knowing that God is real and having a relationship with him and fostering that within myself and deepening my faith. I'm even listening to worship music every day. I freaking love it. My two favorites, Brandon Lake and Forrest Frank. They're both like, it's really good. It's not like some cheesy God music. They're great musicians.
There's a couple, I would pull out my phone, but there's a couple that Army has introduced me to recently that are really beautiful. But it's true. I mean, and you know, and I think Army and I have talked a lot about this kind of stuff, but it's a shame to me that, you know, I mean, this is obviously a long running issue and debate but, you know, it's such a shame to me that, you know, it seems sometimes, you know, whether it's in the LGBTQ community, there is such a conflict there, or that a lot of people have that conflict within them. Because at least as far as I'm concerned, those two things, whether you're being gay and believing in God and Jesus and all that, to me, those two things shouldn't be in conflict. And yet, I understand it, but a lot of people, when you even bring up faith in the LGBTQ community, there's a lot of sort of reflexive, cynicism, and I think that that's an unfortunate thing. But I get it, because people have been through horrible experiences as a result of judgment and criticism, and from their church, or I think it's really refreshing that, and I know I was going to get to this after, but you've actually talked and spoken about how, your mother has talked about you wanting to have a partner, and and how you've said that I'm laughing because of the way you get it, but like you're like, I'm gay, I'm still gay, I'm very gay.
Well,
like,
yeah, because
those two things can both be true. You can be a Christian and you can be very gay at the same time.
Because, I remember the first moment I realized I was different. I was 6 years old. Like, I just knew I was gay at 6, and it only deepened after that. Like, oh my God, by the time I was 11 or 12, looking at those Marky Mark Calvin Klein ads, it was intense. And ever since I had this, spiritual awakening in the hospital, a lot of people are like, so does that mean you're going to stop same-sex attraction? First of all, same-sex attraction is not real. That is not a thing. There is attraction. Same-sex attraction is just like what people say to keep you chained, I believe, because like I said just 30 seconds ago, for me, some people, everybody's different. There are some people who can be very fluid and choose whom they're attracted to, or maybe that's not the word, but like they can happily be in a relationship with somebody of the same sex or not. I am gay. I was born this way. God made me this way. When I was young, I used to pray that I wasn't gay because life would have been easier for me. And actually, listen, I'm so flawed. If you Google Perez Hilton, you carry so much of the trauma and baggage of your youth and your upbringing and the church and all of these things with you. I've said in the past, like, if I would prefer if my son was not gay, but I would love him either way, just because it's an easier life not being gay. It's still hard. I mean, unless and even if you're in Los Angeles or New York City in this bubble, it's still hard. Like in Manhattan is massive and it's so compact. And if you go up to a certain area, people might say things at you if you're presenting flamboyantly, which I love that. Be who you are and don't diminish your light, but it's still a harder path. Or even things like, I think, man, I could be wrong, but if I wasn't gay, I would probably be married by now with a woman, like a lot of gay men are immature with relationships and a lot could be, 20% or a lot could be 50%. A lot of gay men also, and this is great for them. A lot of them are very cool with an open relationship. I'm not like, that's not for me. And, I'd rather be alone with my kids. And that's my priority, raising them and they're still really young. And, yeah, so life is
Yep.
lifing.
Yeah, no, I mean it's true. I mean, my mom always used to say, like I think granted I came out now 20 years ago, but which is insane. But she said that, she always used to say, it's not that you're gay that is why I'm having this emotional reaction. It's more that, I'm worried about the world that you're gonna have to deal with around you. And it is especially back then, but even so now, in many ways it's a
Well, and your mom too, and my mom also, they're older than us. And, when I came out in the 90s, there was still that real fear that he might die of AIDS,
Yep.
In 96, people were still really dying of AIDS. So it's just,
Is that when you came out? 96?
yeah, 30 years ago. I'm old.
Hey, well, I'm not far off, 20 years here. So, I mean, but it is crazy. And it's crazy to have witnessed both how much things have changed, but also in some ways how they haven't changed,
Yeah, and actually, that just brought back something that happened last year. No, it might have even been at the beginning. It was either sometime towards the end of 25 or the beginning of 26. I believe in having conversations with anyone. And actually, ever since I've, been speaking about my faith journey, a lot of people are like, oh, is he MAGA now? Is he a Republican? No. But I'll have conversations with anyone, and I'll even praise somebody for something positive. For example, I got a lot of blowback recently when I said in an interview that I believe Ivanka Trump, Donald Trump's daughter, is a great role model for young women. Like, I would love it if my daughters grew up to be like Ivanka Trump, accomplished way more so than her brothers. Her brothers were your traditional Nepo babies, and she's obviously uber privileged, but she had more ambition than them and went and did more. And just the way she carries herself and is self-sufficient and is a mom and all of these things if they want to do that. So I can do that. But yeah, I don't even remember the first.
Well, you and I both, one thing I was going to talk about a little bit was you and I both got flack for a few years ago for supporting Rick Caruso when he ran for mayor of LA. And, what I find so interesting, and it goes to your point about just in general, like, there's no nuance anymore in the public discourse. And that's, and it's like, if you even veer just a tiny bit from the mainstream point of view or the traditional, progressive or whatever point of view, then even a tiny bit, you're immediately sort of.
I wouldn't even call myself progressive. I'm not. I'm a centrist. And I actually think if there was a viable centrist party, Pete Buttigieg would be in that party. Like, I think he would leave the Democratic Party and he would be in the centrist party. But I remember what I was going to say now. So either late last year or the beginning of this year, I was on a Catholic podcast. This was before everything happened.
I remember that.
And it was these two women, and I went in open-hearted and left that experience so saddened because these two Catholics were saying, we don't believe that gay men should have children or lesbians should have children. And taking it a step further, we don't believe that anyone, gay or straight, should use IVF or surrogacy to have children. And I'm like, oh, that's just such a... If God did not want me to have children, I wouldn't have had children. Because even with the advancements of modern technology, every child is a miracle. It's hard to get pregnant.
What was that experience like, by the way? I was curious about, pretty recently you did that interview with CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network, which, traditionally is known to be anyway, a pretty conservative.
Was it on TBN? I don't know. It was the only reason I agreed to do it was Carrie Prejean was the co-host. And, I really believe I walk the walk. It's not just talking the talk. Like, I believe in karmic cleansing and trying to do better and be better. And in the past, she and I were linked because in 2008, I was a judge on Miss USA, and I asked Carrie Prejean, then Miss California, a question about what we used to describe then as gay marriage, but now it's just marriage, right? Like, I wouldn't even say same-sex marriage. I would just say it's just marriage, right? So I asked her a question about gay marriage in 2008, and she gave an answer that was very faith-based, and I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. And then, in 2008, I was in my enfant terrible phase, as they say, so I called her a dumb bee. And listen, me doing that, though, definitely helped explode that story even more so, because it was like the mean gay and the sweet beauty pageant queen. But I wanted to try to continue to heal that moment for her and do better. So I agreed to do it. And I'm like, oh, God. Yeah. And then they're entitled to believe what they want. And, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't weigh me down. I'm doing a better job across the board of, like I said, not letting the noise affect me from other people's opinions about how I parent to politics. Like, I still care, but I'm not gonna be upset every day and like fighting with people on social media. There's no need for that. I'm also not going to, and I didn't do this in the past. Like, I remember I used to follow a beloved teacher of mine on Facebook. And in 2016, she was talking about voting for Donald Trump. And I was younger then, and I said, I'm going to unfollow her. Now, you know what? If somebody is going to vote for somebody that I believe is a horrible person, okay, fine. I'm not going to unfollow that person because of it. Unless they're saying horrible things themselves, then sure, then I don't need to be consuming that. And like, why am I, friends with them? But I think one of the things that started me really making an effort of trying to build bridges is leaving Los Angeles, and I'm living in Vegas now. I've been here for
How long has it been now?
I've been here for 3.5 years, and Vegas is a really purple city, whereas LA is super blue. Vegas is purple, and I love that. Like, I'm surrounded by people of all different beliefs, and we can coexist peacefully because it's a smaller city and you have to be more civil because you're going to run into people more. And
Yep.
there's just a sense of being from here and like living in the desert that unites us. Like, we're Las Vegans, and that's more important than any political differences or any other differences that we might have.
No, it's so true. I think, not to get into the weeds on California, LA politics, but, it's like, I don't know how familiar you are with this guy. I'm actually working on his campaign. Matt Mahan is running for governor in California. He's like a moderate, Caruso endorsed him. But what I find so interesting about our political discourse now is you've got half the people saying, like, he's a secret MAGA candidate because he's like a moderate, basically. Then you have the MAGA people saying he's a Democrat, and therefore he's like, he's like just like the rest of them. He's like a liberal, blah blah blah. But the problem is, like, when you're in a state like California, where or in a city like LA, where every it's been it's been one party sort of control now for 16 years or something. Which, again, I'm a Democrat. I believe, I basically I've always voted Democrat. But the problem becomes that when you have the luxury of a party just being in control, there's no, like, it becomes like, when you're in a state like Nevada, the Democratic Party is kind of forced to, to be moderate and to be pragmatic, because you have to cater to these other constituencies and people with different points of view. And that doesn't really exist here, which is why I find the whole mayor's race here in LA this time around so interesting, because I was at I went to the NBC News debate that Spencer Pratt and Karen Bass and Nithya Ram were at. And I know how you feel. I'm not going to weigh in on it right at this moment because I'm working on another campaign. But I will say it's going to be really interesting to see how the whole Spencer Pratt thing plays out, because if Caruso couldn't win, and Caruso was a relatively mild in terms of his persona, it'll be interesting to see whether being more outwardly populist and sort of aggressive, whether it'll be interesting to see whether that works better than being sort of a milder figure did for Caruso, if that makes sense.
I think he's incredibly smart, Spencer, and just, I don't know how calculated it is. I think it's just going from the gut. But like this week, I saw a clip of him saying, I've got the support of mothers of Los Angeles. And I'm like, wow, that's so brilliant. Because then if you're a mother, you're thinking, all these mothers are supporting him and I'm not. Why am I not supporting him? Should I be supporting him? Should I actually pay attention to what he's saying? Because I just dismissed him because he's a reality TV star. I love Spencer. I know him very well. He's a dear friend, a loyal friend, somebody whom I've helped in the past and he's helped me. He's made a lot of mistakes in the past, but he doesn't hide from his mistakes. He doesn't pretend to be perfect. And he's really been putting in the work also. It's not just, I don't think it's a publicity stunt to get himself more attention and be more famous. Like, he was baptized by fire. He lost his homes in the Palisades fire. He lost his parents' home as well. He was angry. He basically became this community activist, and then it became bigger than that. And correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, that's one thing. That's the one thing I'll say. Like anybody that says, regardless of whether you like him or not, when Karen Bass said, he's using people's grievances or whatever for his own benefit. I'm like, the guy lost his home and his parents' home. Like, it's kind of absurd for her to say that when so.
And you might know more than me, but the mayor of Los Angeles, it's like the county commissioners have more power than the mayor. So it's like, who cares? Like the commission, or maybe not county commissioners, but the LA commissioners. So it's like, you need somebody to shake things up and like push. And to your point, I don't know if Karen Bass will push. It'll obviously be more of the status quo.
I wanted to ask you, I wanted to, without being too repetitive, I was curious though about, I mean, you've talked about it on your Instagram, but what was that moment in the context of sort of this reprioritization of your faith in the aftermath of your health care? I know you talked a little on your social media about the moment when you had this moment of clarity, but maybe you could talk a little bit about it, but also talk about how, if it has at all affected your daily life and also your approach to your I don't mean to say that like you're talking about it in the context of your brand or your persona, but I just mean, how has it affected your business and are you considering maybe, projects or things that are prioritizing things that relate to the new part of your identity?
So, a lot of people who have near-death experiences talk about that moment in different ways. And for me, like it wasn't a feeling. It was so real. Like, God was in the room with me. And I don't want to get into the details, because one of the things that is different from before is I don't want to and need to share everything. And also, like, prior to my hospitalization, one of the many reasons I was getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night is I was first filling my brain with just toxic thoughts. You're not good enough. You're not working hard enough. You need to make more money. You're not making enough money. You're a failure. Anxiety, fear, doubt, all of these things. And also, I was living a very busy life with going to all of these events and having fun. But now I happily, purposefully am living a quieter, smaller life. I've got all that I need in my house with my kids, and prioritizing sleep and all these things, and prioritizing getting to the gym every day. So that moment in the hospital, what was so transformative, and it was towards the end of my hospital stay, because the first week and a half, 2 weeks, I was on so many pain meds, like I was out of it. But I was so lucid and clear towards the end, but the first 2 weeks I was just bedridden. And the last 10 days I was, getting up and sitting in the recliner and starting to get really antsy, like every day telling the doctor, I had a main doctor and then I had all these specialists, because, with sepsis, like your body starts attacking itself and shutting down. So I had a kidney specialist, I had an anti-infectious disease specialist, I had a heart specialist, I had all these doctors seeing me every day, but I was telling the main doctor who oversaw everybody, okay, I think I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to go home. And they're like, no, your white blood cells are, your white blood cell count is still extremely high. It'd be very dangerous for you to go home. Like, oh my God. Ah. But yeah, the whole experience was so transformative. And the last week and a half, I was also it was so healing in so many ways, not just physically, but like I said, it was spiritually healing and emotionally healing. I had so many powerful conversations with my mother about so many different topics. Because I think people take for granted that, I mean, maybe they don't take it for granted. Like, you're always aware that life can change on a dime, but you naively, foolishly think it's not going to happen to you. So you often think you're going to have more time to have conversations like this with your parents. And I'm so grateful that I never had until now. Just asking things like, towards the beginning, we talked about, like, I used to pray that I wasn't gay when I was young, because growing up Catholic in an overwhelmingly Cuban community, which in the 90s was very machista and probably still is, that was so hard. And my dad died when I was 15 years old. And it always plagued me, the thought, would my dad have accepted me? Or would he have cut off communication and abandoned me for being gay? And I raised that thought to my mother, and she assured me, because she knew my dad so well, they were together for decades, he would have absolutely accepted it. I mean, it might have been hard, but he loved you, and he would continue to love you and accept you. And then this was like, it's so funny because sometimes we, in the back of our head, the back of our brain, are aware of things, and it's right in front of us, but we can't see it. And my mom reminded me that a generation older than me, I have cousins, and I feel so dumb even saying it, but I'm not close to those cousins because they're a generation older and they're my mother's first cousins. She's like, I have first cousins who are gay, several of them, and their parents, their Cuban parents, did not abandon them. And I'm like, wow, you're right. So that was very healing for me. And like I said, like, this moment of complete vulnerability where I could have very easily died. And I truly thought I was going to. The night that I was by my sweet dear mother was in the hospital with me every day, but she would go home at night. And this one night, I went AFib, it's called, afibryal, whatever. It's like, I was having like real heart issues. Like, your heart should be like 100 BPM or lower. And mine was at 140 and getting higher. They had to put me on heart medication, and the rapid response team was in my room. And I'm like, are they going to rush me into surgery now? Like, what's going on? Like, oh my God. Anyways, so the last week and a half was healing and also really inspiring and creative. Like, I even had ideas of things to do professionally, which I would still love to do. But I talked to my manager about it after I got released from the hospital, and he's like, I don't like your ideas. Because, so, and I'm not precious about it. If it's meant to be, it'll be, if, God willing, as they say. I really would love to do something in the food space because I'm a big foodie. I love food, and I have an Instagram account that's pretty food focused. My Vegas account where I share all the delicious meals that we have. And he's like, whenever a celebrity wants to do television, they want to do something in the food space. And I'm like, yeah, but I would do it better. It would be cooler. So I want to be doing something in food and travel. And, I'll just continue to grow it on my own and continue to talk about it and try to manifest it and have meetings. And if it's meant to be, it'll be. And yeah, I'm I'm totally open to pivoting and doing things differently. But for the meantime, I've still got 3 children and my mother that I financially support. So I got bills to pay. And I wasn't able to work for over a month. And you don't even want to know how much I had to pay in hospital fees, even with insurance. I have good insurance and I still had to pay tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, when I was watching all of your videos in the aftermath of everything that was going on, I was just blown away, both in a positive way in terms of the reaction, because the comments, people were so, and not just obviously supportive of your recovery, and also supportive of you talking about the experience with faith that you've been having, but also on top of all that, what's incredible to me and so cool is 20 years after you first, or even more than 20 years after you first emerged as on the forefront of pop culture in America and around the world, your influence is still so gigantic and massive, and the amount of light and comments and
I was really floored at the amount of press that it all got.
Right.
And it wasn't just one thing. It was like updates and a lot of press for several weeks. And, it was
anything like hundreds of thousands of likes and stuff on posts. And it was, it's just, but it wasn't like you were trying to generate.
No, I was just being honest and sharing what I'd gone through. And there's still a lot of people who think I'm disgusting and awful, and that's fine. I love talking to young people because, listen, they're still going to do whatever they want to do, but maybe if 1 or 2 out of 100 are listening and it affects them and inspired to do or not do because of something that I tell them, then I've done my part. Like that cliched expression, a first impression is often a lasting impression. It's really hard for people to see you a different way other than how they first were introduced to you. So, I would say the majority of folks still think of me as the 2006 version of me or the 2007 version of me. And that's not who I am anymore.
Yeah. I think you've proven that. And also, I think, you've always, my mom, by the way, wanted me to say hello and how great and how kind you've always been to her. And by the way, thank you for doing this. You have no idea how much it means to me. I've really enjoyed it. And just, continue, good luck for your continued recovery.
And I'm so happy for you, and you're so happy and doing your thing and your journey and love. Love is such a blessing. You're blessed. You're so blessed. Love is such a blessing.
And it's a blessing. It is a blessing. Thank you, Perez. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share. Feel free to leave a comment. If you have any questions, please email us at questions@dukesdownload.com. Thanks so much. See you next week. Thank you for joining me today on Duke's Download. This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by me, Duke Mason, and produced and edited by Josh Rosenzweig. Original music composed by Nell Balaban. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review. It really helps others to discover the show. I'd love to stay connected with you, so join the conversation by following me at James Duke Mason on Instagram and X, or by emailing me at questions@dukesdownload.com.